We just finished our wildest ever Tassie trip. It was so much fun, but there was a lot that went on behind the scenes you guys didn't get to see.
I guess we're going to go give the boys the bad news.
Jesse and I are going to sit down and go through our best moments that didn't make the cut. Jesse, you there, mate?
Mate, I'm here, Jocko. What a wild trip that was. I'll tell you what, that's one to go down in the memory books.
It really was so epic. I reckon let's crack a cold one and get into a bit of a trip down memory lane, eh? Right at the start of the trip, mate, we get down into Burnie, and the plan was to head into the bush the next morning super early, but not before a quick pit stop, mate. And I remember with the disco, it had just had a heap of work done by KLR before the trip, so I was really sensitive to everything that was going on with it. First thing in the morning, it was still dark and there was a bit of a tick coming from the engine, and I had the bonnet popped up. We'd driven, 150 metres from the hotel before we stopped for brekkie?
Oh, yeah. a bit of a tick. That was a very concerning noise. Is that just the Lander everything?
Yeah, a bit slow in the morning, coughs and farts and sputters. Just building up. Give her a moment. Needs to defrost in the mornings like me.
You were quite confident. You looked and you said, nah, it just needs to warm up. You were 100% right. The Landy had warmed up and the noise, it was still there, but it was nowhere near as bad.
It was a good start to the trip.
I guess you were nervous. All of us are nervous because you told us how much work had been done to that car, and every little noise it made. You know, normally if you ask someone about a noise their car makes, they're all over it. Oh, that's this. But you were still learning all the noises of that car, even though you'd driven it a few times. So it was, yeah, we're going on quite the journey. It was like, how's this thing going to go? But it surprised all of us, I reckon.
Yeah, I think I was, to be honest, like with the boys there, I was a bit like, I don't want to let the team down. We've put a lot of effort in to get there. Anyone who's ever been to Tasmania obviously knows how much of an effort, if you're from the mainland, it is to get all your vehicles there, get your mates there, and go down and have fun. So I was hoping it didn't let me down, and straight off the bat, I was thinking, oh no.
We had a few sort of running repairs on the trip.
But that radiator was a pretty hectic repair to do out in the bush, hey?
Yeah, when I saw how close it was actually broken to the top of the tank, I was a bit concerned we're actually going to be able to seal it up and everything. But one thing that's becoming quite common for us to be working with on these trips is a bit of JB Weld or radiator repair or something like that. We used just about every tube of it that we had on my GU's radiator. I think there was a few other repairs on the trip we used, stuff like that. It was just super handy stuff to have in your toolkit, isn't it?
To be honest, I would not go on a trip, particularly when it's you and I, mate, without having some form of JB or Chemi Weld or something like that, just to sort it out. The amount of times we have used that stuff, it's becoming a bit of a theme.
It did quite a good job. We just need water to stay in this radiator. How do we do that? Crimp some fins, need a bit of, putty and stuff in there, and it worked a treat. For the first part of the trip, we left the cap cracked so it didn't pressurize. In the end, it wasn't leaking, so we pressurized the cap.
Let's chat about why that's a good thing to do, because obviously, if your radiator loses water, the next thing that's going to cook is your engine when everything just gets really hot. But what was the thinking behind leaving the radiator cap off?
Pretty much the cooling system on your vehicle is pressurized, obviously, and flows around. You can get away with it being non-pressurized if you've got a hose that you've patched up with some tape, or in our case, a radiator that was leaking. You leave the tank, the cap uncracked so the system doesn't pressurize. It means there's still water in the system and it still flows around, but it doesn't have to hold in the extra pressure. So it's not great to do long term, but in a situation like this where you're limping a vehicle or your cooling system, it just means your repair, even if it's not 100%, it will be enough to limp the car out of the bush if it doesn't have to hold that extra bit of pressure.
Yeah, exactly right, mate. Like in theory, as long as you've got water moving through your engine, keep the temperature kind of in a point that's okay. It won't cook your engine, and as you say, you can't do that forever, but
yeah,
it'll get you to a point that you can do something about it, because pulling that radiator out in that bog hole down the bottom, I don't think would have been very fun, but we got it to the top of the hill, and then that's where it was a bit nicer to start doing some repairs.
And some of you guys might have seen by now on social media, we even had a little bit of a fire as we're trying to dry out the radiator for that putty.
Oh, that was so funny. We got very wet and cold. It had bucketed down the night before, and my swag got wet, and there was one morning where it was freezing and it was blowing a gale, and everything froze overnight, so my swag was all crusty and frozen, and I was still warm in my swag because I had some good clothing, but I got out of my swag in the morning and flopped my feet off the side of the stretcher to put my boots on, and I'd left my socks on top of my boots, and my boot laces were undone and they were frozen because they were wet, and so were my socks. They were sitting on the top of my boots because they were like a brick. And you might be thinking, well, why didn't you just put fresh, dry socks on? Well, my theory is my boots were wet, so no matter which way I swung it, I was going to have wet feet. And I think that the best way to deal with that is to just get it out of the way early. So I put my frozen wet socks back on, and then they slowly thawed and became wet, and then my feet got cold, and then I put them into my wet boots and tied up my frozen laces. And it sucked for probably the first hour of camp in the morning, but I made a nice hot coffee to soothe my ruffled feathers, and then over the course of the day, my feet eventually warmed up. So yeah, it was, what do you call it, Jesse? Character building, mate.
I remember one night there, we had a few dramas and we just decided to push on. You and the Disco had both the camera boys out the front winching. I was then trying to push them behind you. Tom was out winching, and then Jess in Tank 79, the photographer, he was out winching, and we just pressed on and got as much track done as we possibly could through the night. And it was pretty much every man for himself. No, we weren't leaving people behind, but we were just working in our vehicle teams to get through till we found a flat spot.
One of the key indicators for me that, like, we're working hard and there's a bit going on is when the camera crew are doing one of two things. They're either running between the cars trying to capture footage, or they're helping and shooting on GoPros as they can. And when the camera crew put down their big cameras and then start helping with winching and recoveries and stuff, that's when you know that the job's on. Credit to them, they worked very, very hard, and they had to cop it with me in the Disco as well, getting in and out of that vehicle. So she was loaded to the nines, but as you say, we were working hard on some of those night runs, but it's all in the name of fun, and boy, did we have plenty of it.
There was a massive tree down. Some of these are pretty gnarly with stumps and stuff. We actually got a tree stuck between Tank's canopy and his rear ladder rack.
Yeah, that's right. That was hectic.
I think we had all three of our winches going to pull that across. It broke rope. We had straps out. We got that through.
Nice, yeah! Well done, Jesse. That was awesome, mate.
On the same challenge, as I think I turned around to use my winch, I actually got caught, and I couldn't see what it was, but it was a big stump caught right on my toolbox, and as it went forward, it actually bent my whole tail light piece off. And this was midway through the trip. We still had to drive all the way down to Hobart. So what I actually did was I cut out a piece of the broken bent tail light thing that still, you know, it's all uni-strut under those trays, so it's great for mounting things.
Easy to fix too. You could just unbolt it, eh?
Exactly, that's the best part. Once I got home, I just got a new piece and bolted it straight back on. In the meantime, I cut a piece of angle out of the bent bit, used the uni-strut nut, bolted it up, and I went to Repco and bought a light from a boat trailer and plugged it in, just so I was full legal for the rest of the trip. It did look a bit funny, but it got us through, didn't it?
Yeah, it was so funny being behind you at certain points when we were on the road. It looked like the back of the vehicle was winking at you. I had a bit of a bung eye, but I mean, it worked and it got us through the rest of the trip and kept things legal, so that's what you want.
And I've still got that tail light and the bracket just in the trundle drawer, just in case something ever happens again. I know it's still got the plug on it too, the same plug now, so I could plug it in either side and I'll get myself out of strife.
Easy, quick release. That's good. That's good. You shouldn't have told me that. I'm probably going to mess with you at camp one morning.
We've teamed up with Marta Cars for Cancer to build the ultimate four-wheel drive rig. How do you reckon we've done? This is a brand new 79 series Toyota Land Cruiser V8, the last of the V8s. In fact, it's got over $160,000 worth of modifications to this thing. We've topped the chassis, we've extended it, we've put a coil conversion in the back, a MITS canopy and tray package with red arc gear all through it, bar work, lights, winch. It's been built with one idea in mind, to be able to tour the entire country in absolute style. And behind it, you'll be tying this lifestyle camper's recon. Now get a load of this, we've even matched the colours together and even the wheels. And you can go to some of the most amazing campsites in absolute luxury. If that wasn't cool enough, you'll also be getting $100,000 of gold bullion. So do yourselves a favour and jump onto the website, carsforcancer.com.au. Get yourself a ticket, they're only $30, and all that money helps vital cancer research and patient care at MARTA. So make sure you jump onto the website real quick, because I've got a feeling this one is going to sell out fast.
The big 79 clutch started slipping, and we decided to pause and go back into town and put a new clutch in the 79.
Thank God we did, because that slipped at just the right time. We were about to go into a track, whereas if we had a car with no clutch, we'd probably still be in there now trying to get out. It's not a nice track. You know, we had a great plan. We found a hoist. Tank organised a gearbox jack. I think you organised the clutch and went and picked all that up. And it wasn't a clear floor hoist, but we're like, we can make this work with the jack, you know. We'll shimmy the gearbox on it. Next problem is Tank's car is so heavy, the hoist wouldn't lift it up. So we ended up doing a 79 gearbox on the ground. That was not something you really want to do.
No, it's pretty hardcore, wasn't it? And I guess we got the new clutch because the clutch was slipping. We thought, let's replace the clutch. We got the box out, and it turned out that the clutch that was in it was a big power clutch that Tank had put in, and it seemed okay. When we originally pulled it out, we were like, this clutch doesn't look too bad. It didn't smell bad or anything. And then it wasn't until we got the gearbox out, we actually saw that on the throwout bearing, there was a fair bit of compressed mud on the backside of the input shaft of the gearbox, which meant the throwout bearing wasn't going all the way back. Basically, the clutch wasn't fully engaging, and that's what was causing it to slip. That's what we thought anyway. We decided, whilst the box is out, we had a new clutch there, we may as well chuck it in just in case.
Yeah, that's Tazzy mud at its finest. Getting in places like getting inside a gearbox bell housing on the shaft where the spigot slides back and forth. Like, you wouldn't think that would happen, but the Tazzy mud was in there and it was causing chaos.
Yeah, it's such a weird thing for it to happen. And fortunately, we got the gearbox out, we put it back in, because sometimes it's easy, as you know, Jesse, if you're pulling a gearbox out on the floor of a heavy car, is to pull the transfer case off. Just makes things a bit easier. And we put the gearbox back in, muscled it back in, and then when we put the transfer case back in, Tom and I were kind of shimmying it to go back in, and as I almost got it lined up, Tom went, oh, no, and he put his finger in between the transfer and the gearbox right as I got it home and slid in, and I squished his finger, and I felt so bad about it. But we got it done in mainly thanks to Tom, got it done in 6 hours?
6 hours or so. The next couple of days after you squished Tom's finger, every time I looked across him in the car, he was just sucking his finger. It was quite funny. Going to Tassie in winter after some storms is pretty crazy. You just bought a big new chainsaw, and it was very impressive what it did in Victoria. We saw some locals at the pub the night before and told them roughly where we were going to go, and they said that is going to be littered with trees. There have been some massive storms through there. So I think you took your saw down to the store to get a few things fixed up on it from Vic, and I went down there and I just bought a little mini boss. So I thought this could be handy. We've got a big saw. Sometimes it's easier to get a little one out and do some chopping. Tell you what, that thing got a workout. I think in Tassie, I went through 6 or 7 tanks of fuel in it. And I remember at one stage, I was just walking along in front of the cars and Tom was driving, just chopping stuff down. Whoever's in the passenger seat, whether it be Tom or myself, we were holding this chainsaw, waiting for Jock to call out, you need to come up here and do some chopping. Then when we got to the big dog ones, you cracked out the big 500, and I'll tell you what, that thing ripped through some of that Tassie timber.
Yeah, it did. I remember seeing the smile on your face when I decided to let it eat on some of those bigger bits of timber, mate. But I'll tell you what, if you didn't have that little saw that you had, we would have been in some serious strife, I reckon. Just, as you said, so handy and so many trees down. And of course, we're only cutting the stuff that was dead across the track and cutting it wide enough so vehicles could get through.
After last year, I think Az and myself both had electric chainsaws, and they're great for most places, but we were just chewing through the batteries too quick. I thought a little petrol saw would be great, and it definitely paid for itself on that trip for sure.
It was funny, another thing that happened, because we're getting in and out of vehicles all the time, I swapped the doors over, because as you remember, I dented them in Coffs Harbour. To do that, because the doors I got, the donor doors, were off a different model, so the window regulators, nothing fit with this car. They'd obviously updated
Nothing's ever easy.
Yeah, nothing's ever easy.
You think quick, simple door swap, but you got to swap all the internals.
I also had to swap the door locks over and all that sort of stuff, and I did that very, very quick. And it meant that I made sure the driver door was working fine, but the other doors sometimes were a little bit finicky and wouldn't open. When you and that wore on the camera crew like you would not believe. I was trying to be real helpful with unlocking the door for him and stuff, but it wasn't really a thing I thought of. I'm not carrying a passenger that much, and then I forgot about it and went on this trip and remembered, oh, that's right, the doors don't work that well. I made sure the driver door worked real good, but then by the end, it also started playing up as well. So you might remember, mate, when we put the cars on the boat to go home, I left a little note for the guys on the boat to almost a process to shut the door. It was like get in, one window down, pull door shut, lock door, and then you're good. But to get out, you had to unlock door with window down, open it from the outside, get out, and then you had to close it from the passenger side, lock the door, and wind the window up. So, but then the passenger door wouldn't work as well, so sometimes you couldn't get into either side. Anyway, that was pretty funny.
They would have had a good laugh at that. I remember last year when my car went across on the toll boat as well. I had to write a note out of a few things, how to get it running and how to lock it and how to do all this stuff and how to get it in gear. So I reckon they'd get notes like that quite often with older four-wheel drives like ours going across and have a good laugh.
But hey, it's all part of the adventure, isn't it? Speaking of having the camera crew in the disco, mate, You might be wondering why that was the case, and it was because these tracks were quite difficult, and the camera car is designed to carry a lot of gear, and it's designed for the boys to live out of and charge out of. It's not designed as the most capable vehicle, and it also means that if we spend a lot of time recovering it, it's less time filming the show with the other cars. So we made the decision to leave it behind and put the crew in the vehicles with us. I have to say, the camera crew, they earned their stripes. They were living out of this vehicle with me, and it's quite basic. It had just a fridge, no camp lights, and that's about it. So we had so much stuff, and it looked like a Camel Trophy vehicle, I guess, with doing all that sort of stuff. But to get one thing, say, out of the fridge, you had to open up, you had to move bags out, you had to unstrap the chainsaw, put it down, get into the fridge, get your stuff, and it was quite a big deal to do it. But after a couple of weeks, we all kind of found something that worked for us, and it worked well in the end. Once we spent a bit of time figuring out where things would go, but I'd have them back in my vehicle anytime.
Yeah, mate, that disco was loaded to the hills. By the time we were getting off the island, going back to Australia, you guys had that thing sorted. If we were going for another 2 weeks, I reckon you'd pack the car perfectly. It was so functional, and that was right at the end of the trip. It was actually quite funny, but watching it from an outsider perspective, even when we got to camp, just every little day you guys did little changes, and the stuff you fitted in that little disco, my goodness, it was a pack horse. Speaking of Tom, he's also good on the camera. We'd just gone up this massive hill, couldn't find our camera, and I was attached to this camera because it was the one I got to leave in my shed, and I took it with me, so we had an extra one. Anyway, it was nearing midnight. We'd just done this mud hole, and Tom thought he'd lost this camera. It was quite funny, so he went and put my waders on. He's in this mud hole, rolled his sleeves up, in the waders, hands trying to find this. Everyone's looking everywhere.
What are you doing in there, Tom?
I'm just looking for your camera that I lost. Apparently it doesn't float.
He's probably in there for about 20 minutes. We've given up. This camera is gone. All right, let's pack up the recovery gear. Young Tom, he's put it in a very clever spot. He's put it on top of a recovery bag, and he's put a winch rope on top of it. We go to pack up, and the camera's there. That was quite funny, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was funny because he realised that after he'd walked through the bog hole 3 or 4 times, and then copped it from the camera crew for losing a camera with heaps of good footage on it. But glad he found it. And Jesse, I think another thing that was good about that repair was keeping spirits high in the bush. It's important to do. We had the help of probably the theme song of the trip, mate. It was Pink Pony Club. I remember when you were repairing the radiator, we were having a little bit of an electric boogaloo to Pink Pony Club.
That was quite funny. And every time there was a bad point in the trip, you know, there was a clutch gone, when the disco broke, when my car broke, or it was just raining and freezing, everyone would start singing and dancing, and it just really raised the energy of the trip.
Where would you like to see Jesse and I go next? I've been doing a couple of little smaller trips, just got back from Fraser with Sean, but Jesse, where should we go next?
Look, there's so many places I'd like to go next. I also want to know, did you sort of like this layout of the shed? Did you like the behind the scenes things? Because if you did, let us know in the comments below, and we'll try to do a better job next time to document a bit of stuff on our phones or GoPros. Now, I've had plenty of these while I'm out wheeling. This part, Jocko, is probably one of my favourite parts of the shed. It's where people send in their fails. This one here is quite spectacular. Old Finn Purry, he was out wheeling in the ACT, and he found a bit of a rough patch in the hill, bounced around, I reckon he just saved it. As you can see, his wheel is in the air, and he said he only installed a winch 3 days before. I reckon he's glad he put a winch on after trying to get up that hill.
Yeah, mate, definitely. It looks like one of those times you're glad you've got the right recovery gear for that sort of situation. And hopefully you got the vehicle recovered and all safe. We've got another one here from Helen Fitzpatrick, and apparently this is her first time going out four-wheel driving with her pregnant daughter in the vehicle as well, and a little bit of time into their trip. Tried to do a bit of a bog hole straddle by the looks of it. That looks familiar, doesn't it, Jesse? You've tried to do that before.
Maybe they've been watching some of our videos. That is a great technique till it's not. I used that technique for 2 or 3 bog holes. Worked terrific until it didn't. That's all I'm going to say.
It's a committing one, really, for sure. Like, as long as you're really sure that what's happened here to Helen isn't going to happen, or to you, Jesse, then, but fortunately, it looks like they weren't very far in. You can kind of see the entrance to the bog hole behind the vehicle, and we're able to get out of it. So that's lucky. And apparently, Helen's daughter just wanted to go to the beach and do a bit of wheeling. So maybe that would have been the go, but hopefully they were able to get the Hilux out of there properly. And the good thing is, it does have a snorkel, and it's on the other side. So that was sweet. It's all good.
And fingers crossed that wasn't Helen's first and last time four-wheel driving. Hopefully that gave her a love for it, and now she's going to hit those bog holes a bit harder, square on.
Yeah, I reckon so.
Upcoming four-wheel drivers, the kids sending in what they've done at home, whether it be a drawing, a Lego, or even them driving around their remote control car. Today we've had Xavier, who is 10 years old, sent in something he's made. It's actually Graham airing down his tyres. He's even holding a two-way radio. Tell you what, he's got the canopy on the back. Looks like he's got a rear mount winch on there. He's got an aerial, his axe hanging on the back. Good job, Xavier. That is unreal. It's got a lot of ground clearance too. That thing would be pretty capable off-road, I reckon.
It does. I reckon the only way that would be better, Xavier, is if you had Graham standing there as a little Lego figurine, then you had another Lego figurine airing down his tyres for him. That would probably make it a bit more like Graham. But that's awesome, mate. Love seeing these. Love seeing these come through. So good on you, Xavier. That's cool. And thanks for watching, mate. I always love this section, the rigs, because I get a bit of inspiration for what I want to do next. And I love seeing how people set up their different vehicles. This first one from Jamie is an LS3 converted GU. Looks so tidy. I love the blacked out look. He's got a Mill Weld bar up the front. I've always loved them on GUs. And having an LS3 in that thing, it would hammer. That is a very, very tidy build.
It would have power on tap. And like you said, I do like the black and shiny theme. The only thing that concerns me is get that on a tight track where there's a bit of lantana or something, and I reckon you would nearly cry when you get home. But I'd love to hear that thing on song. LS3, my gosh, that would have plenty of power.
Oh yeah, it would.
This next rig here, Jocko, I reckon this is a bit of a tricky one. It's a dual cab patrol. Now, it's really hard to get these things looking good. This thing actually looks pretty good. The colour looks awesome. I like the colour-coded toolbox doors and canopy doors. He's only done one thing wrong here. See that lake or dam he's parked behind? He should have left the Barra in there, I reckon. Unfortunately, he's going to put a Barra turbo in there. I reckon those things belong in dams and creeks, but mint job, everything's in proportion. It doesn't look too silly. I'd love to see that thing out in the tracks. I reckon it'd be an absolute animal.
Yeah, mate. And the fact that he's done it as at home and set it up as a tough tourer, I reckon that's a pretty tidy rig, mate.
For sure, Jocko. I reckon Brian has definitely earned himself a 4X merch pack for this rig. It looks super tidy, and I love the fact that he's done it all at home by himself. Maybe just questionable engine choice, mate.
Yeah, you've given him a merch pack because you've been talking smack about his engine, but that's cool, mate. It's well earned as well, mate. Brian, that's a nice build, and it looks like you've done everything nicely. Turbo Barra, I reckon it will go harder than any TB Jesse's got in his GQs, mate. So good on you. Well, Jesse, mate, it's always fun chatting to you. I'm going to get another cold one. Maybe spin a few spanners on the disco whilst I'm in here, but thanks for chatting to me, mate. And it was good to reminisce on our time in Tazzy. Guess I'll see you next time, eh?
Yeah, mate, it was awesome to catch up. While you're spinning spanners, I might fix a few things on the GU too. Anyway, that's all we've got time for today on 4 Wheel Drive 24/7, so we'll see you next time.